Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lunch table. My name's Evan. Today I'm joined with the usual crew, Nick and Zach. And today we're going to be diving into the Week 10 slate of games, talking about those, some of the storylines that happened there. And then, as always, giving our Week 11 predictions. But before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at lunchtable.takes. And we'll get into it with the most brutal game for me and Weave to talk about. Was on Thursday night. The Bengals lost yet another heartbreaker to the Ravens, 35-34, in a game where Joe Burrow again threw for 4 touchdowns, 428 yards, and Jamar Chase caught 3 of them for 264 yards, but in a losing effort. How is that possible?
How?
Well, what are you thinking about that game? We've had a couple days to,
stew on it.
Yeah.
How
are you feeling?
I'm going to, well, first of all, just going off of that game, our defense is abysmal. And also, I just am utterly astounded at the way our team responded at a little bit of adversity that came in the third quarter there. Chase Brown fumbled the ball, and from that moment on, they left the stadium. They didn't play football after that. We had, what was it? It was 21-7, I think, in the third quarter.
It was 21-7. You just stopped the Ravens with 4 minutes left in the quarter? 4 or 5 minutes left?
It was 21-7.
You had the game in your hand right there.
21-7, and you're getting towards the end of the third quarter. Chase Brown fumbles the ball, and the team just didn't show up after that. Neither side of the ball played football at all after that play. So I'm extremely disappointed.
I don't know about neither side. The offense scored two more touchdowns after that.
That's true, I guess. But the defense just could not play football after that. So I mean, I'm pretty upset about that. Defense is just this is the worst defense that I've ever laid my eyes on. I think this is worse. This is the worst defense. I think the defense this year is worse than the Bengals defense. Even the year that they went 2-16, or no, 2-15, or 2-14, whatever it was at that point in time. The year right before they got Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor's first year. I think this is the worst defense. This defense is just terrible. Joe Burrow is leading the league in most quarterback statistics right now. Jamar Chase is on track to win the Triple Crown, which 5 guys have done in the history of the NFL before him. Trey Hendrickson's leading league in sacks, and we're 4-6. So the defense is abysmal, and that is the observation from. Well, defense sucks, and I'm also really, really sick and tired of refs missing calls that would go in our favor at the end of games. That really blows too, but that's not really anything you can do. So, outside of that game, though, just to talk about their franchise for a second, the Bengals are just one of the worst franchises in the entire NFL. They are just a terrible, terrible, terrible franchise. Abysmal ownership. Awful franchise. And everybody's going to pin this on coaching, and I am going to stand up against that. I just don't think this is coaching. There are a couple of things that I would change about Zach Taylor. There's a couple of decisions that he makes at certain points in games that I would probably go a different route. And the whole preseason, how he does the preseason, I disagree with that, because we always come out really bad in week 1. So I disagree with that. But overall, this is not coaching. This is the front office, and this is management of the team. The sole reason that the Bengals are terrible right now is because they refuse to pay their players what they're worth. It's just, the NFL is a business, okay? It's just like any other business. You got to spend money to make money. You got to spend money if you want to be good. And the Bengals just don't want to do that. They're just a bunch of cheapskates. They let Jesse Bates go. Defensive back room has limped on ever since. They let DJ Reader go. We can't stop the run. They let Joe Mixon go. we can't run the ball. And two of those three guys that I just named are probably playing at a top 3 in their respective positions this year on their new teams. And we're just gonna repeat the process because the Bengals are gonna let T. Higgins walk this year, and he's gonna go and be probably a top 12 receiver on whatever team he goes to. So the process just keeps repeating. This is not coaching. This really is not coaching. A coach cannot make a Super Bowl team out of a bunch of bull crap. I mean, this is just not the coaching. I mean, I don't really care. I'm going to take an example here that nobody outside of our area of Ohio is going to get. But I don't care if you take Tim Goodwin and put him on Troy Christian's football team. They aren't winning more than 4 or 5 games. This is not coaching. And also, another thing to go back on this as not coaching, the Bengals have scored the 6th most points in the league this year, offensively. So I don't know what all this, our play calling sucks, or Zach Taylor needs to be fired, our offense is terrible. We have scored the 6th most points in the league this year. This ain't coaching. This is the front office just extremely poorly managing their team and just whiffing on draft picks. Just consistently whiffing on draft picks. If we don't draft in the top 5, it's a whiff. So just consistent draft whiffing, and just being a bunch of freaking cheapskates. You're whiffing on draft picks and you're just a bunch of cheapskates because you don't want to pay your players. You know, Jesse Bates, DJ Reader, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins. Those were 4 impact players from the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship run, and you just let all 4 of them walk because you don't want to pay them what they're worth. So the Bengals are just a bunch of cheapskates, and I don't really think this is going to ever change until they decide to actually start spending money like a normal franchise. They're just horrendously ran franchise. Cheapskates, don't want to spend money, don't want to fix the issues that are present. Yeah, it's really disappointing to watch, honestly, because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase they're playing the best football of their career. Also, Jamar Chase is on track to win the Triple Crown, and he also has not been re-signed once again because the Bengals are cheapskates.
I was about to say they still haven't paid.
The only reason Jamar Chase is even playing this year is because he bought a $50 million insurance policy because the Bengals wouldn't play him or pay him. Like, it is just mind-blowing how cheap this franchise is. Like, and I'm telling you, that's why the Bengals are bad. That's why they're struggling to win games right now, because their front office is terrible. They won't pay their players. They're cheapskates. This is not on the coaching. This is on the front office. But anyways, that's what I got about the Bengals. So I'll let you guys say what you got to say there. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase deserve better. This is an embarrassment to football. This franchise is a dumpster fire.
All right, Nick, you can go. You give an outside perspective.
All right. I understand the qualms with the front office. I fully agree. Well, this has been happening with the Bengals since Mike Brown took ownership of the team. He's always not paid.
I'm just new to experiencing it because I am not I started watching the NFL in 2015. So
I've been watching the NFL since Carson Palmer was a Bengal. I've been watching the NFL my whole life. This has been just the Bengals. This has been just what they do. They don't pay their players, which I get. They're a smaller market, so it's kind of hard.
They have the money though. That's the thing.
I know it's kind of hard to attract free agents and whatnot to Cincinnati, Ohio. But you've got a franchise quarterback. You've got a top 5 quarterback in the league, and you've got right now arguably the best receiver in the NFL. You've got pieces that attract free agents. Letting Jesse Bates walk, I still think was the right move because he was asking for top safety in the league money and he was not playing like a top safety in the league. But the big thing for me, at least this past offseason, was not paying DJ Reader because the run defense is still one of the worst in the league. And there's no pass rush. Not no pass rush. Trey Hendrickson's literally leading the league in sacks, but I think that's no interior pass rush at all. I just the secondary hasn't made the progress that we hoped they might this year for Cincinnati perspective. Dax Hill tore his ACL, so he didn't even get a chance to play most of the season. I disagree with it not being coaching though. At some point, coincidences become a trend. And it's not just this season in terms of starting slow and not finishing out close games. This has been in terms of starting slow, a 3-year ongoing problem. And in terms of not finishing close games, it's a 2-year ongoing problem. Allowing Tylan Wallace to shake 3 tackles when he's a yard away from the sideline is inexcusable. And I get the players have to be better there, but that comes down to a lack of preparation. Running you have a 3rd and 2 in your opponent's territory, and you go with 2 50-50 balls on blanketed coverage. Whoever is calling the plays there, that's just the worst possible play design you could possibly have for. Especially when one of the 50-50 balls doesn't even go to your best player in Jamar Chase, especially with the way he was playing. The 2-point conversion thing, there just should have been a flag thrown. That was
the
really,
right call.
Yeah,
I was saying at that point in time, if we score, I'm going for 2 here.
No, yeah, I would go for 2 100 times out of 100 in that situation with the way that the Ravens offense is playing in that second half.
I just don't want to critique coaching unless it is blatantly horrible because we don't know what
I don't think the coaching has been good. The difference between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals this year has been John Harbaugh is a great head coach, and Zach Taylor has not learned a single thing. He has not improved at all since 2021 as a head coach.
And yeah, there's things that he needs to improve on. I'm not denying that, but I'm just saying, number one,
the reason
you can't expect a coach to light the world on fire if he doesn't have the guys to do it.
But he does have the guys.
Like no, he doesn't. He has Burrow and Chase and Trey Hendrickson. That's it.
I mean, I get you don't have the exact same roster, but once you get to this point, once you get to this level of football, you gotta find a way to make do with the guys you have. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to be gifted a Super Bowl caliber roster every year.
Making do with the guys you have is not always going to be a deep playoff run, though. This year, we don't have the team to go to the deep playoff run. We just don't have.
I agree, but there's absolutely no excuse for the Bengals to not be in the playoffs right now. There's no excuse for them to be 4-6.
Yeah,
0.
It's our defense. Our defense is bad. Our defense sucks.
Yeah, and I don't know what has happened to Lou Anarumo. But even I'd say we could argue that before this season, the past 3 years for Pittsburgh, their roster wasn't super elite, but Mike Tomlin was getting the best out of those guys.
Well, I'm not arguing Zach Taylor's one of the best coaches in the league. I'm just arguing that I think I don't think that this rough season is not on him solely. I don't think Zach Taylor should be fired because just if you fire Zach, if you fire a head coach the second they have a bad season, you're just going to get in this cycle like the Bears are in, where the Bears have had a different. Justin Fields had a different head coach. What was it almost every year he was in the league for them, and now Caleb Williams is going to have a new head coach for every year he's been in the league too. The difference you just don't want to get in this process of just constant coaching turnover, because then you're going to look like the Bears, you're going to look like the Browns. And I think Zach Taylor is a solid head coach. Does he have stuff to improve on? Absolutely. What coach doesn't?
The difference between those two situations is that you have a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback and a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver on your team already. You have to adjust expectations. The Bears don't have a Joe Burrow type quarterback and a Jamar Chase type receiver on that team right now.
I agree, but this isn't basketball. You've got to have more than 2 guys to win.
No, I understand that, but
I'm honestly the Bengals. The Bengals this year are probably one of the most perfect examples of what real football is. If you don't have a good defense and you can't run the ball, you're not going to win football games. And that's what the Bengals are. They don't have a good defense and they can't run the ball. They have a superstar quarterback and a superstar receiver putting up unreal numbers, but they don't have a good defense and they don't have a good run game. And that's just back to football basics. If you can't play defense and you can't run the ball, you're not going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, I don't see any improvement with Zach Taylor from 2021 to now. I think he's the exact same guy, and it's evidently not working because the Bengals have gotten worse each year since that Super Bowl run. Um, so I don't. If I was Cincinnati, I would, unless they turn it around and somehow make the playoffs, I would be firing Zach Taylor and giving Ben Johnson a blank check and letting him be the head coach because Ben Johnson for the Lions is an offensive mastermind. And you can do. I think the sole reason the Bengals are in the position they are is because of the brilliance of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It's been a 2-man carry job, and I get Trey Hendrickson's leading the league in sacks, but I think a lot of that is due to the fact that the Bengals have been in so many shootouts. So he's had so many opportunities to be able to rush the passer. He's gotten way more opportunities than any other elite edge rusher in the league. That's not saying he's not having a great season because he is, but
Even
I
last
think
year, he had like 7. He had like
yeah,
15
he had like
sacks
17
last year,
sacks
too.
or whatever last year. I just think the Hendrickson stats are a little inflated. I think his impact hasn't been what the stats have shown. I think that's like if you just look at the stats, you're not getting the full picture. But yeah, I think that I think Zach Taylor, unless they turn it around, his time's up. And I've said this for 2 years now. Like he's just not winning with the caliber of quarterback and elite receiver that you have. And at this level, it's inexcusable. Because, like you said, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase deserve better.
They do, but I was more so meaning they deserve better from a front office franchise.
Oh yeah,
standpoint.
the GM. I think the GM should be on thin ice too.
I
This
think
is what year 3 in a row that they have just made their roster worse and worse.
if I'm in like the ownership position of the Bengals, which I absolutely should be, I could do better, guarantee you. If I'm in the ownership position of the Bengals, I am gonna probably clean like front office house. I think what I would do is I would fire every like draft scout and then hire a butt ton of them because that's another thing. I saw this earlier in the year. The Bengals draft scouts, they have like 6 of them. You're at like your other like average franchise has like 20 plus. What the heck is that? So you got to have. So I would hire an all new draft scouting team. I think you got to have a new general manager. I think that you need to clear the front office, and I think that they need to get past this mental block of being cheap and actually pay their players. Until then, I have no faith in the Bengals. If they do that, and Zach Taylor still struggles, then you can revisit the discussion. But if it's me, I'm cleaning the front office out, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I agree with both the things that you said. I agree the front office has been terrible. And very huge reason why that the Bengals are struggling this year. And I also do think the blame goes on coaching as well. Because like Nick said, without Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, the Bengals would probably win 2 games.
Probably not even that.
But speaking just on the game itself, because you guys basically said everything I was going to say about everything else. I mean, Joe Burrow, obviously phenomenal, 428, 4 touchdowns. I said a couple weeks ago that the Ravens secondary and their pass defense was going to come back to bite them. And it almost did this game as they allowed 34 points. Obviously, Jamar Chase, historic day. I mean, 264, 3 touchdowns. He was unstoppable. But yeah, the lack of a run game is concerning. Only 50 yards rushing. Granted, I know that the Ravens have a good front 7, but still. And I thought the Bengals were playing well up until that Chase Brown fumble. He fumbled the ball, and then it was all Ravens from then on forward. I mean, the Ravens scored on their next 4 possessions.
That can't happen.
Yeah,
that can't happen.
That can't happen. And that Tylan Wallace touchdown was the worst tackling performance I think I've ever seen in the NFL. Like they shoved him,
that was extremely
and
poor.
Just like dove at his legs. Like I could have probably tackled him.
It's because he's by the sideline too. It's not like an open field.
Shove him out of bounds.
You just have to shove him out of bounds.
Yeah, so that was horrible. And it's not like the 2 games that the Bengals have played, barring that overtime period, like Derrick Henry hasn't like gashed them like horribly. Like he had 68 yards this game, and the last game he was held in check until he had that like 80-yard run or whatever in overtime. But I mean, it's just Lamar's Lamar. I mean, he's the MVP favorite for a reason. I mean, 4 touchdowns, 290 yards. He's hard to stop. But I just think the defensive breakdowns that we see every single week is just so costly, and it's like we've said, like Joe and Jamar deserve better because Joe is legitimately first in yards, first in touchdowns, third in QBR, and Jamar is first in receiving, first in receptions, first in yards, and first in touchdowns, and it's going to amount to nothing.
A wild card exit, maybe.
Yeah,
if
because
that.
they
I don't
might
even think we're
squeak
making the
into
playoffs.
and yeah, so you basically just wasted Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's best season so far. You just kind of throw that down the drain. And then yeah, it's going to be the same old, same old. You're going to lose T. Higgins, and then I mean we'll see if you draft well, but so yeah, I don't really know where this team goes from here. I mean, it's as it stands currently, it's Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and everybody else. So that it's not basketball. If that was basketball, you'd be fine. But
If it was basketball, we'd win a lot of games.
yeah, but this is the NFL where you have 11 players on the field and all 11 need to make an impact, and only 2 of them are making an impact day in and day out. So